There we go. Having trouble unmuting the mic. Well, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live. This week, I have quite a show, and the first thing that I wanted to do is a greenhouse update. This morning, I headed out into kind of our main production greenhouse. It's an area where we've been before this spring, but the crops out there have completely changed. So the last time we were out there, it was all seedlings, and now it's starting to transition over to finished product that's eventually going to be wholesaled and also will end up in our store locations. So you might just see your flower out in the greenhouse. So let's take a look at that. This morning, I am out here in the greenhouse in an area where we've been before, but right now, we're watering geranium baskets. So let's take a look at how they get watered. Before, in this section of the greenhouse, we had trays of begonia seedlings that we're getting ready to ship out, and now we actually have finished 32 count flats of begonias that we're growing out to a finished product size. And then on the back side back here, we have New Guinea impatient hanging baskets. So in just a matter of a couple of weeks, this whole area has changed. Down at the far end of the bay, we're watering those flats with watering boom. But back at this end, all of these baskets are being watered with drip tubes. And let me show you how we're doing that. The drip tubes are coming from a header down there, but whenever we need to fertilize these New Guinea impatiens, we actually patch a hose in to a spigot that's right here on the irrigation boom. So this is the irrigation boom parked right here, and we basically patch into it with a hose, and then that supplies water to all the drip irrigation right here. And then when we need to water the flats down at the other end of the bay, they can just disconnect this hose and send the boom down there to water. So this drip line, it has holes punched in it at a certain spacing, and then it's just a matter of setting the baskets at where the holes are for the drippers. And as you can see, we've got some that are starting to bloom. Of course, last week we were down at the field house, and we've got New Guinea impatiens down there that are a lot further along. So these will be heading out to the stores and to our wholesale customers after that first crop. This is a variety called Magnum Midnight Orchid, and it is just beautiful. It's got this dark foliage and then this beautiful orchid colored bloom. If you're a fan of growing your own veggies and herbs, this is our Karina's Kitchen herb collection. And you can check it out on the Our Plants section of our website. We have a listing there of all the different herb varieties that we grow. Now I'm over here on the opposite side of the greenhouse, and over here we have more hanging baskets, and we also have our 4.5-inch Bob's Better Bloom spots. So I've seen a few really pretty blooms here, but these plants are still really young. What I did find blooming are these beautiful double impatiens, and this is a variety called Fiesta Bonita, and the color is pink. This is another beautiful variety of double impatiens, and this one is called Stardust Purple. If you like the look of New Guinea impatiens, but you want something that can tolerate being out in the sun, these are sun patiens. So they are a New Guinea impatient. Let me get the focus there. That can handle full sun. So these take both sun and shade, but they offer a lot more options with the same look as a traditional New Guinea impatient. So that is a quick look at what's happening here at the greenhouse as we kind of transition from spring seedling production over to more finished product production. So that's what's happening out in the greenhouse right now. And of course, with everything coming out in bloom, I'm sharing a lot more photos online. So, of course, you can find those photos on our social media. Of course, here if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. But we're also over on Twitter and Instagram. And we're also on TikTok, so we're starting to try to grow that. Once we hit 1,000 followers on TikTok, we can start going live there also, which I think would be really cool to be able to walk around the greenhouse and do live videos there. The other thing that I wanted to mention real quick before we get into the next video segment is that our Gallipolis store is open. So it opened up Friday. Currently, the hours are Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then on Sunday, noon to 6. So that's our Gallipolis store location. And this weekend, I headed out to the garden. I know last week we did the hydroponics reset, and I said I was going to do the second half of that video this week. Well, I decided after starting the seedlings that I wanted to kind of get them started so I could show you that entire process along with the follow-up video. So, I'm still kind of collecting video clips for that, and that'll be next week. But what I did do this weekend out in the garden is kind of more relevant to this time. And what that is planting some early spring crops. So this past weekend, I got out, dug up a section of the garden, and got my potatoes and my onion sets in the ground, which it's been insanely hard to do this spring. I've got a lot of gardening projects kind of piling up because, well, like right now I'm looking out my window, and normally I have to close my blinds to keep the sun out, but that wasn't a problem today. Yeah, the weather has just been not that great on the weekends, which for me, with working, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, the weekends is pretty much my only time to get out into the garden and tackle big projects. So I know a lot of you are probably in the same situation right now. So I got out, planted my potatoes and onions, and I thought I would share that because, They both kind of grow kind of similar. They're both hill crops, but the way you plant them is sort of the exact opposite of each other. So let's check that out. This afternoon, I am out here in the garden where I'm getting ready to plant the first crops of the year. I've got some potato sets, and these I've cut and had them drying over the last about a week or so, and they're starting to sprout out really nicely. And then I also have a bag of onion sets. So about half of this row is going to be potatoes, and then the other half is going to be onions. And at the start of the video, I was just breaking up the soil right here. I tilled this up in an earlier video, so all that I really need to do is just break up the clods on the surface. But my next step is to dig the trench for the potatoes. When I was tilling up the garden, I kind of went too far this way, so I have about a foot of space here at the beginning that sticks out past the other garden bed. And my long-term plan is to put a flower bed along the front of that garden, so it might be okay to leave it this way. So what I'm planning on doing is kind of going from here to about here with this row. That leaves me space on each side where I've got dirt to pull from to create my potato hills later on, and also to create the hill for my onion sets. But potatoes, they need to be planted pretty deep, so I'm actually going to go down about the distance of the shovel head. So I'm going to go down about that far. Now what I'll do is, as I cover the hole back up, I'll use my hoe to kind of break it up. When it comes to planting these, there's always a debate that you hear, eyes up, eyes down. If you think about it, the eyes of the potato is where the plant sprouts from. So for me, it's logical to have it pointed up, because that's just the natural direction the plant's going to grow. When it comes to spacing, you want to go about 6 inches to a foot apart. And something that I tend to do is I'll look for potatoes with really nice, strong looking eyes. And then I'll plant one with smaller eyes next. And that just kind of gives me a little bit of insurance that I'm not going to end up with a blank spot in my row. And once I get all these in, I'll kind of go through and space them out a little bit more evenly. When it comes to covering these up, I want to break up those dirt clods that I dug out. So I'm just hitting them with the hoe to kind of chop them up. And then I'll just work that dirt over into the trench. My next step is planting the onion sets. And the potatoes, I planted them in a trench. And once they get about a foot tall, I'll hill dirt up around them, about 6 inches high. And what that'll do is it'll promote the roots to kind of branch out more, and I'll get a better potato yield. But with onions, I'm actually going to start them off on a hill. And the reason why is once I get into mid to late summer and the bulbs start to develop, they're going to need room to expand and grow. So if they were down in the ground and had the dirt pushing up against them, that would kind of hinder the growth of nice big bulbs. So by having them up on a hill throughout the summer as I'm weeding along the sides of the hill, and with rain and everything, the dirt will kind of naturally erode away from the onions, and it will leave room for them to grow and develop into nice big bulbs. Okay, so I have my hill initially dug here, and I've got a little trench going down the middle of it. And when it comes to planting onions, there is an up and a down to it. So you've got the root end right here that has some dried up roots, and then you have the top up here where the onion's going to sprout out. So you want to make sure that you put it root side down. And I actually had one here in my bag that had already started to sprout. So you can see the onion there coming up out of the top of it. So you want to make sure that you get root side down. And I'm going about 3 inches apart. And what I'm going to do later is I'll come back through and kind of thin these out and use the ones that I thin out as green onions. Because that's really all that green onions are just underdeveloped onion bulbs. Alright, so that is the onions and the potatoes planted. You might have noticed behind me during the video that the raised beds aren't quite ready yet. And that's because it's been really rainy the last few weeks, and it's been too wet to get dirt in here and mulch. So that's kind of my next big project to tackle out here in the garden, is getting these raised beds ready for planting. Alright, so that is planting potatoes and onions. And of course there's other crops that you can plant right now. Even though there's still frost and freeze danger, you can basically plant just about anything in the brassica family right now. So cabbage, kale, broccoli, and then things like spinach and lettuce, you can all plant right now. They're frost tolerant. The only thing I would recommend is this early in April, if you have something like a row cover or something like that, I would use that. So as I said in the video, my next big project is getting dirt into the raised beds, and probably that's going to be one of the first things I'm going to plant once I get dirt into my raised beds. I'm going to be planting like a row of spinach and kale and some leaf lettuce, and depending on if the weather cooperates, I'll probably be putting row covers over those at least until we get a little bit closer to May. And it doesn't really protect them from super cold temperatures. What it does is it protects them from frost. And then you can also use the same trick in the fall. So it kind of creates a little warm microclimate underneath of the row cover. And I just used some fabric row covers that are reusable that I bought online like a million years ago. And I just pack them up. They kind of fold up, and then you can, stuff them in a corner in your garage and store them. But speaking of weather, something that I want to start doing on Bob's Live is taking a look at the upcoming weather forecast. So let's take a look at the weather. So right now it is 55 and sunny. Well, something's definitely off with that. I'm pulling in the weather data from Microsoft, so let me refresh that. There we go. That looks a lot better. um, but right now, it is 55. It's not so sunny out. We have light rain right now, and it's pretty much going to be kind of rainy and cloudy all week. But looking at the weather for tomorrow, it is going to be warm tomorrow, but we're also going to have rain along with that, and probably some rumbles of thunder in there too. But getting on into the weekend, it's going to start cooling off again. And that's kind of a weird pattern that we haven't been able to shake. It's getting warm kind of midweek, and we have some nice sunny days, ideally. I'm not sure how sunny it's going to be tomorrow. Thursday looks a little bit more on the sunny side, but the temperatures are going to start dropping. So we've been having these kind of nice days midweek, at least temperature wise, but then cold and wet weather on the weekends, which isn't really conducive to gardening. Especially like with me, I need to fill up those raised beds, and it's going to take about 10 tons of topsoil to do that. So I don't want a 10-ton mud pile in my yard. I do have a plan for where I'm going to dump that soil, because I can't, of course, that much weight can't back it through the yard either unless I want a dump truck buried in my yard. So it's going to have to be dumped on the edge of the property, and then I'm going to have to. Patty said that made her back look or back ache just watching it. Yeah, moving that dirt, it's not going to be fun, but it has to be done. So that's going to be another big project that will probably make its way into a video. But yeah, if you've got outdoor projects right now, it is kind of a bummer. Along with the weather, well, we could take a look at the radar currently, which, yeah, it's pretty rainy right now, and looks like there's a pretty good slug of moisture heading up from the south right now too. But jumping back here to the forecast, if I scroll down here, this is the hourly for tonight up through tomorrow. So it's going to get warmer tomorrow, but unfortunately it's going to be rainy. But if we scroll on down, right now our moon phase is in a waxing crescent. And something that we used to have on our website that unfortunately, due to a licensing thing, we no longer have on the website, because, well, I don't want to get into the backstory, but our licensing agreement ran out with the company we were getting that information from. But right now we are in a waxing crescent moon. And a waxing crescent is good for planting above ground crops. So, as I was saying, things like lettuce, cabbage, kale, broccoli, spinach. Right now is a great time to plant those early spring crops, if we could get the weather to cooperate. So, yeah, and also if you're starting seeds indoors right now and you want to go by the moon, right now is a great time to plant those above ground seedlings. So if you're starting tomatoes or peppers or different things like that indoors right now, it's the perfect time to do that. I've actually got some little leeks growing inside because I was reading on the packet for leeks. It takes 160 days for those things to mature. So I'm going to start them inside, then transplant them outside. And I've never grown them before. And looking at that crop time, and depending on how many of them survive to be harvested, I don't know if I'll ever grow them again, to be honest. Um, but yeah, that is a quick look at our weather, and I've lost my mouse. Oh no. There it is. And that's something that I want to start doing each week on Bob's Live, at least throughout the growing season. Um, it's not really any use to us as far as gardening is concerned to do a weather forecast in the winter. It's just cold and you can't grow stuff. That's the extent of my wintertime weather forecasting. But yeah, right now, during the growing season, I'll start doing a weekly weather forecast and we'll take a look at the almanac and what it says about growing. And well, that is this week's episode of Bob's Live. If you want to learn a little bit more about planting seed potatoes and onion sets, head over to our website and check out the show notes for this week's episode. I put a couple links in there to previous blog posts that we've had about planting onions and potatoes. So if you want a little bit more in-depth information, you can go there and check out those blog posts. And well, until next time, keep growing.